Hi, everyone. I'm just going to get set up here. Well, there's nobody here yet, so I can see what we're doing. Hi, everyone. Let me know if you can see me live here. I'm not sure. It says 2 people watching, but I think one of those is me. And also let me know if the camera angle is okay for you, if you can see what you need to see. Okay, so I'm just going to get sewing here. Welcome. If it's your first time visiting my channel, thanks so much for being here. So I've decided that I'm going to sew up my little pouch that I cut out with the Cricut. Well, this one I cut out by hand. It was during my last video where I did an experiment to see if I was faster than my Cricut. And cutting out by hand, of course, um, I was faster than the Cricut because the Cricut took a little setting up. However, I feel like my cuts on the Cricut were much more accurate. So we're going to see how this one sews up. I am going to be using this plaid wool fabric, and the lining is just this neutral off-white floral. All my pieces are marked already. And I thought I would add a little zipper pocket to the outside. For that, I'm going to use an overlay, also, oh, upside down, also cut out on the Cricut. And I'm going to use these cute little forest animal foxes and hedgehog print for my zipper pocket. I have cut a length of zipper tape. I don't know exactly, it's probably a little too long, but that's okay. We can trim it later. I have these adorable zipper pulls that I got from Blue Calla. They are antique brass, or yeah, antique brass, and they're feathers. They're absolutely gorgeous, and I've been dying to use them. So they're going on this bag. And I have one of my little cork tags that I also made completely with the Cricut. I put cork down. We used infusible ink pens to make the logo, and heat press that in, and then the Cricut cut out the tags in the perfect shape. So I'm going to just get to it. Please let me know in the comments where you're from. Um, are you a beginner sewer? Are you advanced? Are you just here to hang out? I thought apparently this is the saddest week of the year, so I'm going to do some sewing, and that definitely makes me happy. I won't be sad. All right. So it looks like we have a few of you here. Oh, hi, Allison. I see you there in the comments. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is take one of my main pieces, and we're going to set up for the pocket with the zipper overlay. So if you've never used a zipper overlay before, it's not difficult. It just requires a little bit of patience and cutting and measuring. So I'm going to take a look. Where's the top of my piece? Okay, so this is the top of my piece. My centers are marked on the piece already. And I'm going to make this zipper overlay and zipper pocket the feature front of my bag. So I just need to make a decision here. Hopefully you can see that. Let me see if I can get you up a little bit higher so you can see what I'm doing. Sorry about the movement. I'm going to bring you up just a little bit so you can actually see my machine and see what I'm doing. Hopefully that's better. Okay, so me being a little bit OCD and there are stripes here, I want to make sure that I have this lined up correctly so that the stripes don't look strange on my piece. I'm not OCD about a lot of things, but the placement of things, I have an issue when things are not straight or aligned correctly. So I'm thinking, because what we have to do here is cut out the fabric that is in the center of the zipper overlay. So I'm trying to place this in a way where I don't take away too much from the stripes, but I also don't want it down too low. So I'm eyeballing this. I'm just taking a quick peek at my center to get an idea. And I need to find some double-sided tape. There we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the zipper overlay and flip it over, and I'm going to place double-sided tape along the top and the bottom edge of the zipper overlay. Okay, so I don't feel it's necessary to put the double-sided tape down the sides. I think this is plenty. Some machines don't like double-sided tape at all. My machine's okay with this one. If you wanted to know what kind of double-sided tape I'm using, you'll be surprised to know that this is actually Dollar Tree Crafter Square double-sided tape, and I really love it. It sticks just enough. I mean, it's definitely not the most sticky, but it sticks just enough. It's $1.25, and my machine doesn't mind it. My domestic Singer machine can go through this tape with no issues and without gumming up the needle. So highly recommend Dollar Tree double-sided tape. I know that's blasphemy. I do have better quality tape, but my machine doesn't like it so much. Okay, so I have my double-sided tape on. I'm going to peel up the paper on both sides. Oh boy. No, I'm not. I need to sew my little label on first. I almost forgot that important bit. I'm just going to place the paper back on my double-sided tape. Where's the label? There's the label. I almost forgot. This little scoop at the bottom of my zipper overlay here, this rounded scoop, is where I like to place my label. And I want to sew that on first because I don't want it showing through on the other side of my fabric. All right, so I'm placing some double-sided tape also on the back of the label. And I'm going to stick that to my overlay and sew it on. Make sure that it's right side up and centered. Okay, so I've placed it on my overlay, and with a top stitch length at about, I use 3.5 or 4. I think I'm going to use a 4 for this. I'm going to carefully stitch all the way around my label. Just adjusting my stitch length at the corners because I want to get right to the corner crisply, and sometimes at a 4 stitch length my needle doesn't have enough place to go and still stay on the label. Do that again here. So I'm bringing it down to a 2 just to get close enough to the edge of the label where it looks even. And when I come back up, I'm going to go back to my 4 stitch length. Okay. So I'm going to leave my tails long here, and I'm going to pull the tails to the back so that you can't see where my stitching started and ended. Okay. And then once you have both threads to the back, just give it a double knot just to secure it so that this won't come off. And I stitched through my double-sided tape on the back, but that's okay. All right, so label on. Now I'm going to peel my tape. Peel the paper off the tape. A little angry with me where I stitched over it, but that's okay. I should have put the label on before I added double-sided tape. Would have made my life a little easier, but it doesn't want to come off. Hi, Sherlock Sews. Welcome. All right, tape is off, or the backing of the tape is off. I'm going to make sure I have my fabric facing the correct direction and making sure that my zipper overlay is sitting in the right direction as well. I'm going to place this centered, and I'm just eyeballing this. Okay. There. So I have it stuck on to my front piece. Now what I'm going to do is sew just around the outside edge of the zipper overlay. So not this inside box, just on the outside. When I'm finished stitching it on, we're going to cut away this fabric on the inside so that our zipper will show through. So I'm going to go ahead and sew around the outside of the overlay. Start on one end here, make sure that it's nice and straight. Oh, and pull the thread out of my needle. So I didn't hold the thread. No biggie. Okay, so I am leaving my ends long on my threads again because I am going to want to pull those to the back of the zipper overlay just to hide hide the thread ends. It just gives a really nice clean look to your top stitching. Hi, Sherlock Sews. I'm making a zipper pouch, and this is a pattern that it's just a pattern out of my head that I've made hundreds of times, but I did a little video cutting this out and I erased my Cricut. So this is the second pouch that I cut out by hand. It's not the one that the Cricut cut out. And I've been waiting for a little bit to sew it up. So I love this fabric. It's very wintry and, well, winter or fall. I'm just getting the zipper overlay on. Now these pouches I usually make as little knitting project bags. My first crafty love was knitting, and that's kind of what introduced me to all the other things. I have been sewing for a little while, but I'd given it up when my children were small. I just didn't have the time to do a lot of sewing. I was part of a quilting guild for a while, quilting and stitching guild, and did some quilts. But then I found bag making a little while ago. And other than making my own knitting pouches for myself, I decided, you know what, I really love handmade bags. And so it's kind of become my new obsession. I'd love to know, anybody watching, do you just sew, or are you a big beginner sewer, or do you have other crafty loves? Because I know I'm a spinner, a weaver, a knitter. I sew bags. I do polymer clay. So I have my hands in all kinds of different crafty things. All right, zipper overlay is on. And so I'm going to pull those threads to the back to hide them. So if you've never done this before, you're gonna have two threads, and if you pull on the back thread, the one where you started, you'll see a little loop come up, and if you pull that loop through, it's going to pull your front thread through. Did I get both of them? Nope. Give a little tug. There we go. Okay, so I have all my threads pulled to the back here, and I'm going to tie them off. I usually like to do a double knot to tie them off. And sometimes I'll take a lighter to them just to burn the threads so that they don't go anywhere. Ah, you're in the right place, Sherlock. So I do those things as well. And the Cricut, I don't have an embroidery machine, but that's on my wish list for sometime in the future. We'll see. So I do have a few videos out there already about the Cricut. I'm sure you've probably watched them already, but I plan to do a few more. I'm going to do things like strap ends, even a little bit of design work and showing how I design patterns in Design Space on the Cricut. So stay tuned for that in the future. Yeah, my husband spoils me too. Okay, so we have our zipper overlay on. Not bad. I went off the edge just a little bit in that corner, which is kind of bothering me, but not enough to pull it out. Now, what we need to do once we have that zipper overlay piece in is we need to cut out the center of the center fabric inside the overlay. So what I am going to do is get my rotary cutter, and another little mat so I don't cut my machine. One moment. Sorry about going off camera for a second, but I'm going to put my little mat under here. I'm not going to cut the whole length. I'm just going to get it started here because I don't want to cut into my zipper overlay either. But just to get it started for my scissors. All right, so I've cut right through. And so what I'm going to do is trim away on the inside just enough so that you can't see this fabric peeking out in front of the zipper overlay. So sometimes it's easier to just turn it to the back and just carefully trim away. And I usually, because I have double-sided tape there, I can't go right up to my stitching line, but I can get pretty close. The whole point of this is to just make sure that you cannot see your main fabric poking out in front of the zipper overlay and getting in the way of your zipper when we install the zipper. So I'm curious to know, Sherlock, did you come here via the Creative Bag Makers group? I got so much support for my channel on that group, and so many people found me that way. I'm very grateful because I still have an itty bitty channel. We're 300, oh, you did. Excellent. 344 members strong, which I'm really hoping to grow a little bit and spread my love for sewing bags. Okay. All right, I think I've got it. Yeah. All right, so I've trimmed away the fabric on the back as nicely as I can. It doesn't really matter how nice it looks on the back as long as it looks nice on the front, because nobody's going to ever see the inside of the bag. But, all right, so now what I need to do is cut a piece of zipper tape for my zipper pocket. Get my big roll of zipper. So this zipper overlay is, the opening is 6.5 inches. So I'm going to cut my zipper to 7.5 inches just to give myself some room. If you would like these zipper overlays, I believe I linked them in one of my previous videos. There's a free file to my zipper overlays on Design Space. So if you use a Cricut and you use Design Space, you are welcome to those zipper overlay SVG files. And if there's any other kind of design that you're interested in having me do for a zipper overlay, different shape, I'm happy to maybe even do a video and show you how I design these. Well, thanks, Sherlock. I love my fabric choice. I'm a really big fall color kind of girl. I love rusts and oranges and browns and deep purples and wine color. And my friends always, I have a group of knitting friends actually, and they're like, we always know what kind of color you're going to choose. And it's always those either deep jewel tones or fall colors. All right, so I'm putting my zipper pull on. I'm sure anybody watching has done this before. However, if you have never done it, I open my zipper, slide one side on, Slide the other side in and get them in there as evenly as I can. And I give it a little nudge, make sure they're even, a little wiggle, and should be able to just push the zipper on. All right, zipper on. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to place my main piece to the side, and I'm going to get my lining pieces. So I don't know about anybody else here. If you're a bag maker, I don't often interface my lining pieces. I feel like it just adds a lot of bulk to my bag, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't like the feel of that crispy pocket on the inside, so I don't usually interface these pieces. However, I do always interface my main lining pieces. But all right, so to get this zipper overlay or zipper into the overlay correctly, we're going to do something that does not feel natural at all, but I'm going to take the zipper and I'm going to place it right side down on my fabric with the edge. Oh, I'm going to put it, I guess it doesn't really matter, with the top edge of the zipper lined up with the top edge of my fabric. Centered. And I'm going to clip that on, and we're going to sew that on at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Yeah, it does depend on the fabric. I hear what you're saying, Sherlock. Okay, so I'm going to sew this right side, zipper right side up onto the right side of my my lining, pocket lining fabric. And I did not line that up very perfectly, so let's just scooch it down a little bit. That's better. Okay. And because I'm using a domestic machine, I am going to move my needle as far to the left as I can. And this will allow me to ride right along the zipper teeth and give me just about a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. Zipper out of the way. The only problem with not interfacing this fabric is I have a lot of little stringy strings hanging out. But okay, so now that I have that sewn on, I'm going to take my other lining piece, also right side up, and I'm going to place my zipper right side up and sew that piece along the top edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now my zipper pull is closing to the right. And make sure that the lining pieces are nice and lined up. Okay, we're going to sew this on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Lift my foot, get my zipper out of the way. Okay. So what you should have now is your zipper facing right side up and almost laying flat down on the wrong side of your zipper pocket fabric. So on the right side, the zipper is wrong side down. So normally I would give this a little press. Actually, I am going to give it a little press. I have my iron right here. Pardon me. Just it makes it lay much nicer if you do press this. Pardon my head in the way. I'm really close to the camera. Okay. Okay, so now that I have this, I can lay this down flat and make sure that your zipper is going in the direction that you want it to. In my case, I want my zipper closing to the left. Trim some little threads here. And I'm going to take that main piece of fabric that we added the zipper overlay to, and I'm going to lay that down over my zipper pocket as straight as I can. Let's give it a flip over to make sure that I'm centered. Looks good. Now the whole point here is to make sure that that zipper overlay is seated nice and evenly over your zipper pocket. You could add some double-sided tape here as well. I don't really feel it's necessary. That's totally up to you. All right. I think that looks great. And I am going to now top stitch all the way around the inside of the zipper overlay box to secure the zipper pocket down. Now you do want to make sure that you have one lining piece up to the top and your other lining piece down at the bottom, because if you don't, you are going to sew your zipper pocket shut, and we don't want that to happen. So just make sure that both pocket pieces are laying flat open underneath. All right, so I am going to start down here. Actually, no, I am going to start on the top. And my piece shifted just a touch. Okay, and at a 4-stitch length, I'm going to sew about 1/8 of an inch around the zipper overlay, attaching it to the zipper pocket. Turn for my corner. So I don't know, Sherlock, if you're still here, if you saw my sad post on Creative Bag Makers where I made a pouch the same as this, the one I cut out with my Cricut, and I sewed it upside down. I was so sad. I sewed my main fabric, cut my main fabric upside down. It's still beautiful, but I was a little sad about that. All right, so we are almost there. I like to take my time with these zippers because they are front and center, and I always want them to look really nice. Okay, so this as well, I'm going to pull my threads to the back and tie them off. I'm not feeling super lazy today, so I'm doing that. I don't always do that. Sometimes I just cut them. But since we're here and I actually have some people joining me, yay, we will do it the pretty way. And I will pull my threads to the back and tie them off. So I can't tell if you're still in here. I'd love to know in the comments, what bags are you working on right now? If you're a bag maker, I'm curious to know. I'm looking for some new patterns for this year to work on, and going to stock going to stock up on some patterns for this year. Okay, so I have my beautiful zipper overlay is sewn on. My pocket is still open at the back, so all I need to do now is fold down this pocket, line it up with the other side, nice and flat. And there is going to be some excess fabric here. So what I'm going to do, and this pocket, I actually made it a little bit too long for the pouch. So I'm going to trim that down a little bit because I don't want it getting caught in the seam allowance of the bag. And I'm just going to eyeball this and snip as straight as I can. Okay. And then I'll use this little piece for a zipper overlay for the front of my bag. Okay, so I have my pocket here trimmed down, and I'm just going to sew down the side seams with the right side facing up, and I'm going to lift up the outer main fabric out of the way so that we don't sew through that. Ooh, you just drafted an enlarged Devon. Well, I hope you'll post and let me see. Okay. Stitch, and I'm bringing my stitch length back down. Okay. Now, I am leaving the bottom of this pouch open because I'm going to turn my entire bag out from this pouch. So what I do is, before I get to the bottom, I'm folding up the bottom edge about 1/2 of an inch. And that's just going to make it much easier when it comes time to sew up that hole in the bottom of the bag. And I make sure I really backstitch well at these ends because we're going to be putting some stress on the bag here. Okay. Putting some stress on the bag when we pull the whole bag through. So just make sure you really secure these ends. Oh, I can't wait to see it. I definitely want to see it. I'm backstitching over the teeth of the zipper at this end just to make sure that it's really secure. All right, so that is it. I have my pocket in, and the hole, I left a hole in the bottom for turning the whole bag out, but our front piece is finished. So now actually what I'm going to do, because I didn't do it before I started the video, I'm going to cut my box corners out on both lining pieces and main pieces. I find that when I'm sewing the top zipper in and I'm lining up the fabric to make sure that it looks straight and it's all aligned, having the box corners cut out in advance helps with aligning the fabric. So I am quickly going to do that. Now I could have had the Cricut do this for me as well, all in one step, but I mean, it would have been fine for this bag. The last one that I ended up cutting my fabric upside down, well, there would have been no going back. If I had noticed that the pattern, that the fabric pattern was upside down compared to the markings on the back, when I cut the Cricut bag out, I could have just flipped it over and made my own box corner markings and it would have been fine. I did not notice until the bag was completely sewed up that my directional fabric was upside down. And it's not terrible. Actually, I have it right here. So here's the bag. And all my little trees are hanging upside down. The poor, sad, upside down trees. But still pretty. And it's not super noticeable. And everybody in the group said I wouldn't have even noticed if you hadn't said anything. So I probably should have just kept my mouth shut. But it made me sad because I did so much hard work, and the poor little bag sits upside down. But that's okay. I'm over it. Okay, so I'm cutting out the box corners on this bag, on the lining, and then we're going to install the top zipper, and then there's just a couple steps to sew up the rest of the bag. This is a super quick project, and I can usually, I'm recording, so I'm going pretty slow and explaining my steps, but I can usually whip these up in about 10 or 15 minutes if I batch cut. And that's another great thing about using the Cricut for cutting is I can be sewing while the Cricut is cutting out more bags for me, which is amazing. And I can also train my husband to cut fabric for me with the Cricut while I sew. Win-win. Okay, all my box corners are cut. Now I just need to do a little prep on my zipper. So I have not added my other zipper pull to the zipper. I'm going to do that quickly after I burn the ends. I want to melt the ends of the zipper tape so that they don't fray. And I know that this zipper tape is actually going to be too long, but we'll trim it. We'll trim it in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to add one side, the other side. And if you're new to zippers, if you've never had to put your own zipper pulls on, I have a video actually all about installing zipper pockets and putting zipper pulls on and the types of zipper, number 3, number 5. You can check that out. This one's being stubborn. It doesn't want to go. Oh boy. Well, this one I'm going to have to do. Well, let's burn the ends again. Feels like the ends of the zipper tape are really mushy. They don't want to sit properly. I just don't want to go in even. I'm going to give it another snip with my, I have a special pair of scissors just for zipper tape so I don't ruin all the scissors. My goodness. And you can definitely tell that they have cut many zippers because they are getting dull again. They're just IKEA kitchen scissors. Okay, dropping things. It's Friday night and I'm not even drinking and I'm dropping things and maybe I need a drink after this video. Oh my goodness. This zipper does not want to cooperate. There we go. I'm gonna go. It's only because I'm doing a live video. If I wasn't doing a live right now, the zipper would have been already sewn into the bag. My goodness. Maybe it's a zipper pull. I don't think so. There we go. All right. Yay. Zipper pull is on. All right. Oh boy. Okay. So I had not pre-cut any zipper tabs. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to use my little boxy lining fabric that I used for the pocket. And let's see. Yep. Usually cut them about 1.5 inches by 2 inches. And I'm going to press, I am actually going to press these raw edges in. I don't always do it this way, but I feel like I really love this pouch and I want it to look extra nice. Pardon my head. My iron is right here. Get up close and personal. Okay, so I just pressed my edges in and I'm going to sew down. I'm going to sew down the zipper tab with the wrong side down at about 1/8 of an inch. Okay. Then I'm going to flip it up, fold my edges in, and it is much, much, much too long. Oh my goodness. I don't know what I was thinking cutting it this long, but fine. It's fine. Okay. Oh, this is the most terrible zipper ever. We're going to have raw edges on this zipper tape. Sorry, zipper, but not behaving. There we go. I am going to sew them down and chop them off. All right, I've had about enough of this zipper. There, one side's done. Now, this is where I need to measure, because when I am attaching the zipper to the top of this bag, I need to make sure I have at least 1/2 of an inch clearance on either end, because I do not want to sew over the zipper tabs. I don't want the zipper in my seam. And by doing that, it will make for a nice, clean top of the bag that has no weirdness or funkiness, and then the zipper will lay nice and flat on the top of the bag. So what I did was I laid down the zipper tab probably even a little more than 1/2 an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch in on the top of my bag, and then made sure to cut it off so that I have the same amount of space on the other side. That way, the zipper tabs are not going to get caught in my seam when I sew the bag up. All right, so now I need to add the zipper tab on the other side. And I'm going to be smart this time and trim it properly. Lay it down. Sew this down at 1/8 of an inch. Okay. Fold this down and over, and top stitch the zipper tab down. Now you're not going to see most of the zipper tab, but so I don't know why I'm being so particular, but it does poke out of the bag a little bit. You will be able to see the top of it, so I want it to look nice. Okay. All right, zipper tabs installed. This one is not the straightest, but it will do. Now, what I need to do is I need to take my front panel, and I'm going to center my zipper with the pull going to the left, right side down, right sides together with the top main panel. And I'm going to just clip that in place. Now, a lot of people will base this. I do sometimes base this, but you can also just lay your lining down and sandwich that on top of this and do it all in one step. I think that's what I'm going to do, just for time's sake and thread, because my poor little bobbin looks like it might give out on me. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to take one of my lining pieces and take it right side down, right sides together with and sandwich that zipper tape in between. And then just add it in there with the clips. Yeah, I practically creative. That's exactly what I did, but I was trying to be fancy and fold in all the raw edges, and then so I did sew it down like wrong side down on top of the right side of the zipper, like with the right sides facing, flipped it over, and then tucked in the ends. There's so many different ways, but I was getting frustrated with this darn zipper, so I did quick and easy. Okay, so I'm sewing this down with at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I'm just moving my zipper pull out of the way. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so excited I actually have real life people on here other than myself and my husband. It's only my second live ever, so I'm glad to have you here. Okay, so what we should have here is your zipper sandwiched in between your lining and your main panel, and I'm going to fold down the lining with the main fabric, lining up the edges. And this is where I said having the box corners cut out is really helpful, super helpful, because I can line those up first and clip them, and then just make sure that my seams match up at the top where the zipper is. All right, that's pretty good. Not quite as accurate as my Cricut cut bag, but almost, almost. See, my lining's poking out a little bit. The bag that I cut out with the Cricut, these box corners lined up perfectly. My edges were aligned exactly. I guess that also depends too on whether or not your seam allowances are consistent and accurate too. But it just came together so nicely. So you could press this, and maybe I will give it just a tiny quick little press. And I'm going to top stitch along this edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Oh, thanks, Sherlock. Thanks for bringing your friends. Appreciate it. Get to hang out on a Friday night sewing some bags. Are you just watching, or are you sewing at the same time? Are you working on anything? Okay, so there's top stitched, and that's probably the nicest top stitch I've done in a long time. Check that out. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to remove the clips from that because I know it's all lined up. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. I'm going to take a sip of water first. I've been talking a lot. Watching and eating ice cream. Oh, I'd kill for ice cream right now. I don't know what part of the world you're in, but here it's like minus 30 Celsius outside. It is ridiculous cold. So the thought of eating, I'll eat ice cream any time of year, but most folks around me right now, the thought of eating ice cream, they would think I was crazy. Must be in Florida or something, where I wish I was. Okay, so I am just clipping down my main fabric, right sides together with my zipper. And making sure my edges are lined up. Okay. And I'm going to take my last lining piece and I am going to put that face down, sandwiching the zipper in between the main fabric and the lining. And we're in the home stretch. We're almost done. You're doing what I usually do on a Friday night and veg in front of my TV with YouTube on and put on a live video and just chill out. Okay, so going to sew together these pieces. Ah, Florida. See, I knew it. I knew you were in Florida. I wish I was in Florida. It's been a very long time. Last time I was in Florida was 23 years ago, months after my husband and I met, and we decided to take a road trip to Florida. Here I'm in Northern Ontario, in Sudbury, Ontario, which is about, if you know where Toronto is, we're about 4 hours north of Toronto. And it is cold. We were in t-shirts at Christmas and now it is minus 30 Celsius, which I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit. I'm terrible about the conversion, but it's cold. Probably, I think for you, like at least minus 10, maybe, maybe close. Oh, you're in Michigan, Sherlock. Yeah. So we're very close to Michigan. It would take me about 2.5 hours to drive to the border and cross in Sioux, Michigan. And so our weather is very similar to yours, and it is very, very cold. You get the lake effect snow though, depending on where you are. But I imagine you're probably near Lake Michigan, getting the cold wind chills. I just guessed. I totally guessed about the Florida, but I know there's a whole lot of bag makers and members of the group that live in Florida. So I was just dreaming of being in Florida. And that was just a wild guess. I had no idea. But I'm psychic. Okay. So I'm doing exactly the same thing that I did on the other side. I'm just lining up my edges, making sure they match up perfectly and clipping them. Oh, Lake Huron. Yeah. Oh, so that's like closer to the Wisconsin side. My geography's terrible. I kind of know. Wow. Yeah, so you're just about the same as I am. Cold. We'll have to go visit Practically Creative in Florida and soak up some sun. I love Florida. I've been to Florida many, many, many times. It's one of my favorite places to go. As a child, my family, we would go there on vacation. Spent a lot of time in Daytona. In my late teens, early 20s. That was our party spot usually, but okay, so I'm top stitching and then we're going to sew this bag up. But my husband and I took a spur of the moment road trip. We went to Daytona, we went to Orlando, we went to Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure. We drove through, it was 24 hours straight and did all those fun things and then turned around and came home and it was like a 5-day trip. We had a blast. Yep. Yep. Sarnia is about 2 hours away. Oh, okay. So you're like more Detroit side ish. Well, maybe not. I don't know. You're fairly close to me, not super, super close, but Sarnia, Ontario is maybe about 5 hours from me. North. I'm north 5 hours. All right. So here we have the bag. It's looking pretty good. And now all I need to do is open up my zippers so that I can turn the bag out. And I'm going to sew the bag together by putting the two outer main fabrics together and the two lining fabrics together. And again, I'm going to start at the bottom with the box corners and line those up. Okay. Now, when I do this, to get my zipper tabs looking perfect on the outside after I sew this up, I push my zipper tabs down towards the lining and I line up those side seams. So with the zipper tabs pushed in towards the lining, I'm going to nest these side seams, make sure that they are lined up, and then work my way down the rest of the bag. Oh, bass fishing. My son is a fisherman. We have thousands of lakes just within a 100-kilometer radius of where I live. So if you're outdoorsy, this is the place to be. But I imagine Lake Huron, same thing. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Okay. I don't know if you've ever heard of Manitoulin Island, but we are about an hour away from Manitoulin Island, which I think runs right into Lake Huron, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Now, because I left my zipper pocket open on my main fabric, I can sew all the way around and I don't have to worry about leaving an opening on my lining or my main fabric when I'm sewing this on the inside. I'm going to sew all the way around. I'm going to start with this side seam, make sure that that's nice and secure. Let's do it on this side. Okay, so the trick here, make sure you're not sewing through the zipper tabs. And so I am sewing at a slightly larger seam allowance for my lining so that it sits nicely in the bag, because these pieces are cut at the exact same seam, same size. And I'm going to not even lift this. I'm just going to bring this side under. There we go. Okay. And I'm getting to that second side seam. I'm going to throw a couple of back stitches in there just to make sure it's secure. You hate birthing bags? Double that? Yeah. Well, this pocket's pretty big. It's almost the entire width of the bag, so it should be okay. I've been having issues lately. Thank you to aging with my hands, but I will usually do a double birth, so I will leave a large hole in the lining and then sew it up through a pocket to make my life easier these days. But for these pouches, because there's not much to them, I will usually try and just birth it through a pocket. But yeah, I never used to mind birthing bags. It used to be my favorite part, and now my hands hurt all the time. So I hear ya. Okay, and back stitch. Yeah, you're right. They do turn out nicer when you do them like that, but sometimes it doesn't always work. Okay, so I do my box corners a little differently than some. Well, there are others out there that use this method as well, but I feel like it lines your corners up perfectly and makes them look really beautiful and pretty every single time. So instead of starting and stopping in the corners, I will just create a jump stitch. I will bring the corners together and just continue sewing. So now these corners are all attached, but they're all lined up perfectly at the seam. So I'm going to box all these corners by just pulling the bag out. And I'm sure you've all done this before. I don't need to explain too much. But if you've never boxed corners, let me know and I will go slower and explain. Make sure that it's even. Yeah, these are sitting really nicely. I'm just nesting my seams instead of opening them. But these came together perfect, so I'm just going to go ahead and sew them at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to do these outside at a 1/4 inch, and I'm going to sew my lining at 3/8 inch seam allowance just to help with the fit of the lining in the bag. Okay, 2 more corners to box and then we get to birth the bag. You get to watch me struggle. This one shouldn't be too bad, although the interfacing, I used Easy Fuse from Blue Calla. She's an Ontario Canadian designer. I'm sure you've heard of her. And it's quite stiff. It's almost like I don't know how to explain, but it's a really nice firm stabilizer, which I probably shouldn't have used on the lining piece. I probably could have gone with something a little less, just a regular woven, but I had just gotten that in the mail and wanted to try it out. So I quite like it. I think it would hold up just as well as like a Decaville Light in bags. So I'm kind of excited about that, but maybe not the best choice for the lining. Oh, good. I'm glad that was a new tip. Hopefully I explained it well enough so that if you wanted to try it, you would be able to get it, because I know that on this live, the view is not the best of my machine. I'm just kind of sewing along here. But if you'd like me to do a really super quick tutorial video on YouTube, I'm happy to put one together about how I do that. And if there's any other little tips or tricks, things you want to know, I can add that in there as well. I don't mind doing a video about that. Okay, I'm going to trim that corner. Ooh. So I do trim my lining seams down. I do not trim my outer fabric seams down. I don't know why that is. I just feel like it always looks nicer. The lining seams, and especially because these are quite stiff, I want the lining to sit really, really nicely in the bag. So I am trimming them down to about 1/8 of an inch. Oh, yes, absolutely. See the finished thing up close? Yes. Okay, so my box corner, it lined up perfectly. They all lined up absolutely perfectly. So the seams came together beautifully. When I turn it out, I'll show you how nice those seams look on the outside when we turn it. It just, I don't know, it's magic. I've been doing box corners on bags for years and they've always been okay, but this way my box corners always line up just beautifully. So, all right. So we have the bag. It is turning time and I left my pockets open, so that's great. And oh, this is not so bad. Okay. It's not terrible at all, actually. Well, that turned out actually really easily. I'll eat my words. Okay. I'm going to stick my hand back in there and get my corners all poked out. Okay, so there's a good view of how nice and perfect that box corner. Doing it that way makes the corners line up just perfectly. And especially when you're using a fabric like this that has stripes and you want things to line up nicely, and you're a little OCD like I am about having things line up nicely, it's impressive. Okay, so I'm going to push this into the bag, make sure that it sits in there nicely before I close up my pocket. Oh yeah, they sit. I'm going to show you the inside too because wowee, they sit in there nice. Yeah, it just, so happy with that. Great. Okay, I don't know how well you can see in my little bag. Oh, that's terrible. Not that great, but it just lines up beautifully on the inside as well. Okay, so I'm just popping my little zipper tabs up. Didn't sew through them, that's always good. Okay, so almost finished. I just need to pull my pocket out. And give it a little tug. Because I folded over the edge of my pocket, it should come together perfectly. And it does. Beautiful. Okay. I never ever used to clip these pockets together. I used to just quickly throw them together and sew across it. And now I do clip it because I found that now that I've been doing that, my seam here, even though nobody really ever sees it, is usually really much nicer when I do clip this pocket. You know, when you're at the end of the bag and you're just in a hurry to get this last step done and you just zip through it. But I actually clip this part now, where I used to be lazy and used to just try and wing it. No, I think this is going to be just like a knitting project pouch. I have a vendor event coming up at a community in the Muskokas in Bracebridge this summer, and it's a knitting and fiber fair. And I usually make these pouches as like small knitting project bags. And I don't think I'm going to put handles on this one. I could have added a D-ring on the side and put maybe like a wristlet strap. That's probably something really convenient for my knitter friends. So maybe on my next one I will do that. But these ones, they're just, you can use it as a makeup bag or a little lunch bag. For me, I put my knitting and crochet projects in them. And I feel like these are just the right size to hold. Like, I knit a lot of socks and hats and mitts and scarves, and it's perfect for that size. It won't fit a sweater project, and I do have a larger bag that I make for sweaters, but for a smaller project, lace shawl, something like that. All right, okay. I'm going to tuck my little pocket in. I'm going to zip it up, and then I'm going to make sure the inside is sitting all nice and flat. Threads everywhere. Okay, so you can see, yeah, the bottom, well, my stripes did not line up. That's going to drive me insane, but it's on opposite sides of the bag. But my seams are pretty. They're really nice and flat, and they match perfectly. And there you have it. Easy little zipper pouch with a zipper overlay, with the handmade label, cork label. Yeah, this is my own pattern. This is kind of just my own pattern out of my head. I do have SVG files because I do cut these out with the Cricut. Every now and then, most of the time I'll cut these out with the Cricut. It basically is just an 11.5 by 10.5 square for each piece. So 2 lining and 2 outside pieces. And then 2 6.5 by 8 pieces for the pocket. And just kind of in my head. I will write it down and I will put it out, an actual instructional pattern out there. But I've done so many tutorials and it's just stuck in my head. Okay, well, it is 9:15. We've been on here for a little over an hour, so not bad. We finished the little bag in an hour, which usually will take me 10 or 15 minutes, but it was super, super nice hanging out with all of you. And I'm really glad that that you came to hang out with me, and I hope you'll join my next live. I'm not sure when I'm going to do it yet, but Friday nights are usually pretty good. And if they work out really well for you too, then I'd be happy if you came and hung out with me again. If you are not subscribed yet, please do. Tell your friends. And thank you so much, Sherlock, for bringing Practically Creative in and sending the link to her. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure we will catch up with one another in the creative bag making group or other bag sewing groups. I belong to many of them. So let me know if there's anything that you would like to see me do on a live or on a regular video. I can do another tutorial video. I think I might put together one with those box corners and the way I worked those box corners, and probably some more videos about using the Cricut. I would like to cut out some strap ends and strap accessories. I don't know what the word is. D-ring connector tabs. That's what it is. So I'm going to do a tutorial shortly on that. D-ring connector tabs, strap ends, maybe show how I design the zipper overlays as well. But thank you so much. I'm going to sign off now. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Take care.